So, for our education technology class, we had to basically go over um, what copyright in the classroom is. And I mean, everyone knows, especially learning in college, what copyright is because you can't plagiarize. You learn that in your Composition 1 and 2 classes. But when it comes to using it in a classroom as a teacher, it's a whole different story. Um, you can kind of go around it in ways, but Professor Barnett gave us links to YouTube videos and other online resources that we could use to find um, and do research on what copyright in the classroom means. And I kind of found my own website. It was Bright Hub Education. Um, it kind of went over the basics and broke things down as far as what you can do as far as teaching and how the law kind of works. But according to Bright Hub Education, copyright is a gift from the government given to the creators of original work. In order to try and get more people to create, copyright laws protect those who create original work by giving them exclusive rights to their work. Thereby, this removes any fears or doubts that the creator may have that their work won't be stolen or credited to others. These laws essentially mean that you can get in as much trouble for stealing someone's idea as you can for stealing someone's purse. You hear about this a lot with um, like kids stealing songs, piracy, DVDs coming out before they actually are released. And kids don't really understand how much they can get in trouble by those things. So basically, if this is discussed in the classroom, it'll help out. The Copyright Act of 1976 basically lays out all the rights of copyright holders as well as the provisions of fair use. Um, Fair use meaning educational wise that you can use something instead of not being allowed to. As a general rule, unless you see explicitly that something isn't copyrighted, then you should assume that it is, because somebody had to come up with that idea to put it onto paper. Um, Copyright protection does not last forever. I kind of was shocked by this one because when you hear of ideas with great scientists, yeah, it's public knowledge, but you just assume that, we know it's from them, they created it. Um, but copyright protection lasts the duration of the author's life plus 70 years. So after that, it's public knowledge. It's open to anybody. Um, Copyright holders can copy their own work. They can create derivative works. So they're the only ones who can actually make a sequel to their book. They're allowed to sell their work, perform their work publicly. So they wrote a book and they wanted to read a chapter, do a reading, and they're the only ones who can display work publicly. Um, the Copyright Act has a special exception for educators, however, under the fair use rule that I stated earlier, basically saying that the copyrighted work is limited, um, but you don't have to have permission to use it for educational purposes, within reason, of course. Um, which there's four things that kind of go into whether or not it's in fair use, and that's the purpose and the character of how you're using the work, the nature of the copyrighted work, the amount that it's used, so you're not just completely using their idea for all of your classes that you're teaching. The effect upon potential market value. I didn't really understand that, but I guess if you're going to be um, teaching a class and they're taking ideas and they're making money off of it, then that's kind of where that could come into play. Um, Fair use allows for multiple classroom copies, but there are rules within those copies. So basically, single copies can basically be made of anything, um, there's no really any problem for that as long as you're using it to inspire the classroom in a positive way. Multiple copies, now there are rules that go with that. There are poems have to be less than 250 words and less than 2 pages. Prose is less than 2,500 words or an excerpt, so it has to be less than that. And there can only be one diagram or picture from the original work. Copying is at the inspiration of the teacher. Copying is only for the one class. No more than one story or 2 excerpts can be from the same author, and there cannot be more than 3 stories or excerpts from the same collection in one class term. Also, no more than 9 instances of multiple copying for one class during its term. I was actually very surprised by doing this research at how much goes into making the rules of copywriting. You're always taught that you can't, use somebody else's idea, but you never think about how the teacher has to worry about that as well. I always just saw my teachers printing off stuff and handing us stuff left and right and having us read stories and that kind of stuff, and I never would have thought about they have to be careful that you can't copyright and you can't put so many diagrams on a page. And so this has been a really neat experience. I'm actually glad that I'm seeing this side of copyright law for teachers. So thanks for listening, and I hope you learned a little bit more about copyrights for teachers.